shouting matches and skirmishes between pro- and anti-Cuban government activists. A predictable warm-up, perhaps, before the much-anticipated handshake between U.S. President Barack Obama and Cuban leader Raúl Castro. While former U.S. President Bill Clinton praised Cuba's presence, calling it a historic move towards reconciliation, outside, Cuban government supporters chanted anti-U.S. slogans, like echoes of the Cold War. They had pulled out from a social forum after Cuban dissidents, whom they described as mercenaries, had been allowed to attend.
This is a theatrical farce where they think enemies will talk and sing a song of peace. It's absolutely unacceptable.
Cuban government opponents, including Rosa Maria Payá, had been invited to parallel summit forums, in part under Washington's insistence.
In the next few days, leaders of the Americas will have the opportunity to show courage, to support the Cuban people, and specifically a referendum initiative for holding free and multi-party elections in Cuba.
For the first time since it was expelled from the so-called Family of the Americas 53 years ago, Communist Cuba has been invited to sit at the same table as the United States. An invitation issued by the summit host, Panama's President Juan Carlos Varela.
There are just two places in the world that all countries share a common space: the United Nations building in New York and the Panama Canal. So that's Panama, that's our country, a country that unites people.
But this was more than a personal decision. Inviting Cuba had become a regional ultimatum to President Obama, issued by all his Latin American and Caribbean peers.
This is a first step by the Obama administration to show their willingness to have more cordial relations with Latin America.
President Obama had in fact hoped to announce the establishment of full diplomatic relations with Cuba ahead of the summit. Allowing Cuba back into the fold should be seen as a gesture of enlightened self-interest. It should help Washington recover some of its lost clout in the region, at a time when China is making unprecedented inroads into what was long considered the backyard of the United States. And while the ideological divide between Cuba and the United States remains enormous, the gathering of all the neighbors of the Americas for the first time represents more than just a photo opportunity.